pivot. I'm like picturing Ross Geller like yelling this phrase over and over again in this TV show Friends. So funny. But this is the title that came through, was the title Pivot. So this is what we'll be talking about. So as we go through our discussion today, if you want to picture Ross yelling in your ear to pivot, that is what we'll go with. Um, Pivot. Hmm. The important element that I want to bring in when I first start talking about pivot is this element of risk. There are a lot of people who, when it comes time to pivot, when it comes time to make a change, when it comes time to take action, move in a different direction, transition, they are risk adverse. They don't want to change. They're hesitant. They hold on to the beliefs that they've had. They um, struggle with actually taking action and pivoting into a new direction. So, in order to address risk in this way, I want to bring to you an example, which I love, which is an example that requires you to go back to your childhood and imagine playing in a sandbox. So, in the sandbox, there's a bunch of toys, shovels, sandcastle structures. Like, there's so many things that you can use to create, build, do anything that you want in this sandbox. And when we are younger kids, we pick up and discard things so easily. It's actually very comical if you've ever watched a little kid. They'll like pick up a toy, look at it, play with it, and as soon as like the next shiny toy comes, they'll be like, chuck it over their shoulder, and they're on to the next thing. Kids can pivot so quickly. And this isn't from like a distraction standpoint, so to speak, but it's from a place of curiosity, interest, expansion. Like this sandcastle structure was so cool, and I built it, and look at it. And now all of a sudden, there's a bigger, better sandcastle structure, or there's a more unique one, or there's a shovel that I really want to go dig holes with. Like there's so many different expressions that like kids go through, and there's so many throughout the day where they can pivot one way to another. I want to do this. They go through so many emotions, so many feelings, so many experiences, and they pivot so easily. And we lose that natural ability to pivot throughout our day because we invite in to our lives systems and structures and that are often rigid that keep us from being able to pivot and keep us from being able to be flexible and move throughout our day. We build out our calendars and our task lists, and we're like, this is what I'm doing today. I have coffee at 7. I have work at 9. I have to take the dogs for a walk at noon. I have an after school activity or something with the kids after the end of the day. I have dinner. I have all these things. We like build out our whole lives, our whole schedule. And we don't invite in the opportunity to be in a flexible state or to pivot when we need to pivot. I'm going to say that word a lot in this video, sorry. Hopefully it's more pleasant than how Ross is saying it in his video, in his show, in the show Friends. Um, but we we invite in structures into our lives that are rigid, and we become inflexible, and we don't have the ability to pivot and change and move in a different direction as easily as we once did when we were kids. So I invite you back to that analogy to share with you and give you the opportunity to recognize like there was a time in your life where you were able to move and change and do things really quickly, move from one thing to the next and be inspired by this thing and then be inspired by that and want to create in this way. And there was a time in your life where you were able to do that. And that's what I am inviting you to explore now. And I want to tie in the element of risk into this because oftentimes, as we build these structures and systems and the rigidity of life, we feel risk adverse, which means, you know, a perfect example is once we get to a certain age, we feel like I can't start over now. I've been in this profession for too long. I have this family. How am I supposed to start over? I have this career. How am I supposed to change? I have this lifestyle. How am I supposed to make it look different? And we really struggle with that transition, that ability to pivot, that ability to change. Um, and a lot of that comes down to the beliefs that we have, the structures that we've built, the rigidity that we have been so accustomed to that has told us if you do this, you get this. If you work hard, then you can build this type of life. If you earn this much money, then you can afford this. We have grown up thinking very linearly and a very give and take. If I do this, then this. A very like literal exchange of things. And when we're kids in the sandbox, we're just like, yeah, like this sounds cool. I want to explore this. I want to like dive into this, right? So our appetite for risk oftentimes diminishes as we get older. And this is something that is okay and natural. And you have the ability to change your appetite for risk and your ability to change how frequently you pivot and make different and new decisions. And you see the stereotype of the entrepreneur, or even if you're into, there's an assessment called the Colby assessment, and one of the um, factors in it is quick start energy. So how it measures you on a scale of like how quick are you to start a new thing, have a new idea. And a lot of entrepreneurs fall into this category where they have new ideas, they want to move quickly, they want to explore this and do this. So there's a lot of different ways in which that energy is expressed, and it's not innate to everyone, but it is something that can be practiced and cultivated. And especially with the rapid and increasing changes that are happening on this planet, and at this time, the ability to pivot and to be flexible and to change is important to recognize and important to move with because Earth is moving. Earth is moving quickly. Things are accelerating at a very rapid rate. So the more adaptable you can be, the more flexible, the more easily you can move from one thing to the next, the easier it will be for you to navigate the changes that are occurring on the planet, occurring within your body. There are so many changes that are occurring within our bodies at this time. And the easier it is to be the the easier it will be easier for you if you can learn to adjust and pivot your beliefs, your structures, your perceptions, how you see the world, right? We grow up thinking that the world is this way, and we have a a very set, often people have a very fixed mindset around things. And they're like, this is how it's done. This is how my family's done it for generations and generations. This is what it is. This is how it's always been. Like being able to expand your mind, be in a growth mindset, and like look at things differently, experiencing things differently. This is how we will navigate change in a much more fluid and natural way rather than resisting it and then being pushed into the change. That's why I'm speaking on this today because I want to invite you to live life in a way that is in a flow state and allows you to move through life with more peace and more ease and less strife and struggle and a lot of other feelings and emotions that can be difficult to experience. So when an idea comes, when an inspiration comes, when you feel called to move in a different direction, your ability to recognize what that is, where that's coming from, and move upon it, act upon it, is crucial. Sometimes I talk with people and I will tell them, I'll ask them, have you ever thought about writing a book? Like I'll get that intuitively and I'll share that with them. Or have you ever thought about starting your own practice, or have you ever thought about exploring pottery or just anything? Have you ever thought about this? Um, I share this with people and they're like, actually, yeah, like, several years ago, I thought about writing a book and I just never did. And, you know, I have these conversations with people all the time where those stirrings, those inner musings, those expressions are already existing within them. They just have not taken action upon them. They have not moved in that direction, or they started, but then they stopped. And um, it's like now is the time to move in that direction. Now is the time. Go back to the place where you were a kid in a sandbox and start exploring again. Start following your passions again. Start moving in that direction because that is what is propelling everything forward. The the joy that you experience when you say yes to something, and not just something, when you say yes to your heart, when you say yes to your desire, when you say, I've always wanted to do this, and that saying that whatever that thing is, you've always wanted to do this has been like for 20 or 30 years, like do it. Go do it. Go live it. Go experience that. Follow that. This is why we're here and this is what we're here to do. And when you move in that direction of following your heart, when you move in that direction, when you allow yourself to pivot from one way of being into a next, and you allow yourself to look at old beliefs and let them go and move into new ways of being, when you allow yourself to cease doing the habits that you've always done and try something new, your ability to expand is magnified infinitely. It's your ability to pivot is so directly correlated to your expansion and your growth. Because if you stay stuck and you stagnate and you don't move and you become rigid and solidified in the ways that you live and experience life, you are cutting yourself off from growth and expansion and experiencing the states of joy and abundance and happiness that exist on this planet right now. Like they're right here and right now. So, looking at the places where you may be stuck and may be feeling like you can't make those changes and start loosening your grip on the way that you have been and the way that you've been being in this world, and recognize that you can pivot, you can choose, you can change, you can move in that direction. This all comes down to that awareness and that ability to choose because you can, and you can change and you can do things differently and you can move in the direction that your heart is calling you to move in. And there's nothing that's stopping that other than you, your beliefs, your perceptions, your expressions that you've lived for 20 years. Like, grow, change, evolve, live, expand, become it, become who you always wanted to be. When people ask, like little kids, who they want to be when they grow up, right? They're like, oh, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a lawyer. Like all these like cute little things, cute little professions. And some go on to become that. And that is so incredible and so beautiful. But if you're watching this, you're probably not a kid anymore. And you're probably at the stage where the reality of becoming those things may feel daunting or overwhelming, or like, how could I change and move in that direction? Or maybe those just like aren't things that you want to explore anymore. But that doesn't mean that the desires of the heart stop. It doesn't mean that you reach a certain point in your life and you're like, yeah, I'm done. You know, there's nothing else that I want. You're always gonna want to like experience life deeper and have more, and more not in quantity, but more in depth, more in richness, more in expansion. This is the nature of our souls. This is the nature of awareness. We're here to expand and grow. And so, um, those seedlings. They change and they evolve and they grow throughout time. Like maybe you always wanted to be a firefighter and now you have no interest in that. Great. But there is something that you're interested in. So find that and follow that and be willing to pivot. Be willing to change the direction of your life. Be willing to change the path that you have walked on and that you have silently vowed to and been like accepting of, oh, this is just how life is and this is the way that it's got to be, right? Like we're moving beyond that now. We're pivoting. We can do it. We can pivot. We got this. So, no matter the direction that your life is leading you, your heart will never lead you wrong. It will never lead you to the wrong destination. It will never lead you to the wrong place. You can trust in that and you can follow your heart. You can pivot. You can relinquish the adversity and the restrictions to risk that you have. You can relinquish the limitations that you have placed upon yourself and you can move in the direction that you want to move. So I'll end this by saying, pivot. You've got this.